folks, I think we'll get started.
They pay better. They have the better policies.
Let everyone kind of get the last of their food and get freshen up their beverage.
Yeah.
I want to thank everyone for coming out on kind of a rainy evening to the Sitecore developer meetup.
You just want to yell?
Microphone.
All right, before us meeting the microphone. So thanks everyone for coming. I know it's kind of a less than ideal weather evening for coming out, but you know, those of us that kind of put this together, this is really for you guys. It's not for us. So it's great to see a good turnout. We have some people that were at the Chicago Sitecore Users Group last night, and I've already been told we have a better turnout in Chicago. So. We'll pause for that. So tonight when we did the last meetup, we kind of put our heads together. What do we want to do for the next one? We saw on the calendar that Sitecore was having their symposium in Las Vegas, kind of in between then and when we wanted to do the next meetup. And then I do some work with Trevor, and he said he was going to be presenting at basically a symposium recap at the Chicago Sitecore meetup. And I kind of asked, hey, when are you guys going to want in Milwaukee, since he's going to be right nearby. So I kind of roped him in to come in. Verndale graciously sponsored him coming out, as well as the pizza this evening. And thanking a couple of the other sponsors. I want to thank Hanson Dodge and Active Commerce for providing the space. It's always, I worked here for a few years, so it's always nice to get back. And then I also want to thank Xeon for providing the beverages this evening. So kind of a round of applause for we got that thirsty and sitting out in the rain. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Trevor. Trevor Campbell is a tech lead, am I right?
Architect.
Technical architect at Verndale, a Boston-based Sitecore partner with offices in Chicago, Houston, Florida, all over. And Trevor is also a Sitecore MVP, has been so for a number of years, and is going to kind of go over what's new that came out of Sitecore Symposium. He's got a brief presentation. We've also got another MVP here, Mark Gervais from Proficient, and myself. I was at Symposium, and then we have Adam Brower and Jason Booth from Active Commerce, who also attended Symposium. Is it, show of hands, anybody else that went to Symposium that I'm missing? So great. The kind of the last half of this meeting, it was kind of designed. We don't want to have kind of a formal presentation. It's more, we want to kind of spark some discussions about what you saw there that you thought was new and cool, and kind of where you think you or your company kind of see yourself kind of dedicating your mental energy towards learning in the next few months, as well as trying to disseminate a little bit of that information to people who might not have been as fortunate to be able to go. So, without that, I'm going to turn it over to Trevor.
Well, thank you all for coming out. This is actually a very good turnout, as we said. Last night we were out in Chicago, and it wasn't quite as awesome as this. So thank you all for coming. It's great to see you all. As we said, I've got a really short, just a couple PowerPoint slides, just to talk about the highlights. And then I'm going to roll right into, I've got Sitecore 8 set up locally. Take a look at it, see what it looks like, see some of the things we found in the slides, and wrap up quick, and we'll go right into the next one of the roundtable discussion. So a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. So I've got just a couple of things. Like I said, I'm going to roll through these really quickly. I'm going to do a little bit about me. That's the kind of guy I am. I'm going to roll right into Sitecore 7.5, just regular groundwork. You guys probably know a lot better than most about what's included in 7.5, just because of some past presentations that you guys have done here in Milwaukee. We'll talk about it really briefly, just in case anybody hasn't had any background on that. it really sets the foundation for Sitecore 8. And we'll roll right into Sitecore 8, what we what we learned from Symposium.
The next section will be
A little bit about commerce, not a ton about commerce.
what's going to be commerce thunder over here.
And then lastly, the Coveo piece of this. Cool. So, Trevor Campbell, as we said, technical solution architect. Technical solution architect at Verndale. As we said, 2014 technology MVP. Certified in a couple of different pieces of Sitecore, as you can see. And I've actually been working with Sitecore since 2005, all the way back to version 5.5. When I got trained, I actually got trained by John West back in the day out in San Francisco. So that's how far back we go here. And then shameless plug for my own blog posts. If you've never seen the 28 Days of Sitecore Rocks, check it out. It's really cool. It's all about Sitecore Rocks in a 28-day format, kind of small, consumable.
Why not 30 days?
Because it was February.
Oh.
That's why.
On a leap year.
And definitely, as we roll through some of this, definitely chime in questions. It's meant to be interactive. I don't want to be up here lecturing for extended periods of time. So absolutely throw it out there. I'm excited about the group that we have tonight. It looks like we got some good devs here. So we had a good mix of kind of marketing and dev last night. I could see all the devs getting really excited on one side and then lights blazing over on the other side. So I'm excited about this crowd tonight. So right into 7.5, we talk about really briefly. The big piece of 7.5 is obviously the XDB, the Experience Database. Obviously the big piece of that is the MongoDB instance of that implementation. It basically gives us the ability to introduce the scaling aspect of the analytics data, allowing us to scale not only horizontally but vertically as well. Just the SQL databases are obviously still around, so core, master, web, all the things that we know and love, are all still there. The content databases, those aren't going anywhere. It's only the analytics databases converting to this MongoDB. Another shout out, we have a cloud edition of the MongoDB Sitecore does. They're offering it as a service. If anyone's interested, they don't want to stand up a MongoDB and manage that. Sitecore will actually take over that for SaaS software. And then, so lastly, 7.5 is really just slap on the XDB on the 7.2, and you've got no new features or functionality. Straight up, just 7.2. The other piece of it is the piece of 7.5, the X profile. So, we've all seen the previous EMS implementation of looking at a particular user and things of that nature. This is really consolidating all of the information that we know about a particular user. The goals that they achieve, the campaigns that they're associated with, so on and so forth. All of their data, bringing us into this unified profile of information that we now have. So a great addition to 7.5. And then lastly, the last piece that we want to hit on with 7.5 is just the session management piece of it. Now that we have the ability to store a session in a MongoDB instance, we're able to basically scale that across our enterprise, whether it be geographic dispersed or not. So that's the 7.5 recap. And like I said, that's lays the foundation really for all the stuff that they want to do for version 8. Version 7.5 is the release for the technology people, everybody, most of the people in this room. Version 8 is what I call the marketing release. So what's with version 8? Version 8, you got all of the ancient XAML interface. If anybody, some of you guys are probably working with it, it's not as easy to work with. And replaced it with the the Speak interface, or also known as the Sitecore Process Enablement and Acceleration Kit. I had to look that up. I don't know what that means. So as you can see, basically what I've done is I've got a little bit set up here on my machine.
Take a look at it.
Grab a couple screenshots from it.
The interface has obviously changed. The loading screen is a little different. Before we had the typical, we picked the interface that we wanted to go into, whether it was the desktop
or the page editor or content editor. We kind of went from there. Now they've introduced this kind of dashboard that kind of sits in between. That's kind of our jumping point from everywhere that we want to go from there. So we wanted to go into the content editor,
or we wanted to go to
experience analytics, or we wanted to go into next step, or anything like that. All basically the starting point is right here. Also on that dashboard, you can see there's barely see, but you can see there's also some analytics data coming across in that dashboard. Some of the other screens, just to point them out really quickly. Top right, content editor. You can see it's a little more streamlined, a little more, even more office estimated thing. Down bottom left, we have the page editor, and then bottom right, that's download. So they all function the same. They all work very extremely similar. I think when you get in there and start playing with this, it's gonna feel fairly similar. So one of the new interesting things of version 8 is the Experience Explorer. So some of us, probably know that the Experience Explorer has been around for a little while. It's been out in the marketplace for some time. You can actually download it, throw it on your site. But now it's included actually into version 8. So what is the Experience Explorer? It basically gives us an interface to test personalization. If you've ever had to test any type of personalization in the past, whether it be geographic lookup or anything of that nature, you had to figure out how to fool the DMS in order to make it happen. So if you had to either like a browser plugin or something along those lines, or you had to have separate users all set up to do different things. This one's got this campaign. This makes it so much easier. So it allows us basically to impersonate personas, behaviors, locations, and referral sources. So from the screenshot here, left-hand side is, and you can't read it, is the settings, and the right-hand side is the settings. So what this is on the left-hand side, you can go through and select, what you're trying to impersonate. So if you're trying to impersonate somebody coming in from a particular location, whether it be a state, a country, or something along those lines, you set that on the left-hand side. And then what you'll see is then this page will hit the apply. This page will refresh. You'll see what the web page looks like in the center. And on the right-hand side, on the viewer, you'll see exactly what's being reflected at that point. So we select a particular location. That location shows up. We select a particular persona. The persona will show up on the left-hand side, so on and so forth. Any questions? So Federated Experience Manager, one of the things that I actually found this to be kind of one of the more things that came up with Symposium. Stephen Pope, I believe, did the presentation for FXM, and it's actually kind of cool. So what is FXM? Federated Experience Manager. It basically gives you the ability to test and capture analytic data from a site that's not managed within Sitecore. So in this scenario, basically we burned it at a Microsoft Symposium. It was a one-page site. Really, it just had a little bit of going. It had basically has a link on there, a call to action to download the PowerPoint presentation from one of the sessions that we gave, so on and so forth. But straight up microsite, nothing crazy. It wasn't built in Sitecore, straight up HTML page. What we can do with FXM is actually basically capture analytic data from a page that's not managed in Sitecore. And how's that done? There's a small line of JavaScript speaking. These things like you drop on this one page, and it's automatically hooked up. That makes sense. It's pulling that information, the analytic data from people that are browsing that site, looking at different things. The other thing you can do that's also very interesting is that you can attach click actions and other marketing attributes to a particular page that's not managed within Sitecore, right? So, take for example the example that I just gave you about the call to action that we have to download our presentation materials from Symposium. Well, I can actually go into this interface, select that call to action, and say, hey, whenever somebody clicks on this link, I want to trigger a goal back in the experience analytics. Something. I'm going to mess up the name.
I want to say DMS, but I'm still working on the new terminology myself.
So we can, basically trigger a campaign, something along those lines.
To a goal, what have you. So that's kind of cool. What you can also do with that though is that you can actually dynamically place content from a Sitecore instance on a page on this page that's not managed within Sitecore. I keep saying this page is not managed within Sitecore because that's kind of the key point. It's a page that isn't built out even in .NET for all that matters, right? I set this up locally. It's just a static HTML page.
What you can do, you can actually drop a placeholder on this page and feed controls, feed renderings from your Sitecore instance, and inject them into this page. So you can imagine that it's kind of powerful that you can actually take that, inject content from your CMS onto a page that's not managed within Sitecore. On top of that, you can do personalization. So you can actually personalize a component on a page not managed within Sitecore. And you can also test it as well. So pretty powerful. I'm not going to show this because I think it's cool. On our local demo site here at Sitecore 8. And hopefully you get to see what's going on. One of the other takeaways from Symposium is testing, or otherwise known as experience something or other experience.
Experience optimization, right?
Mark was remembering last night. All right, so I left my strategist back in Chicago. She was actually with me last night. We kind of split the evening up. So she was there to correct me last night, but tonight I'm flying solo. So and Brad's not to help either. So so anyways, we'll just call it testing now. I can't remember what the actual correct terminology is. But there's a code name for this project called Skynet. So have you ever heard Skynet or anything like that? That's what we're referring to here. So what is testing / Skynet? It's basically a way to help facilitate better testing of components and pages and things of that nature on a Sitecore site. If you look at the maturity model for a Sitecore instance, you can see that some people, they start off really slow with they get their site into Sitecore, they start doing some personalization, things of that nature, and then they go and they start doing some of the more advanced features, maybe a little more personalization, things of that nature, testing, But as of right now, it's fairly, the barrier to entry to get into that testing phase is fairly cumbersome. What they want to do with this new rollout of this testing framework is to basically make it a lot easier to do testing. So the ability to, I think they call it one-click testing. Get in there, test something, make recommendations for things that could be tested, could be optimized, things of that nature. And then track those things. Tie those back to users, giving the users the ability to guess if a particular test that they're implementing is going to have a positive impact or a negative impact on the engagement value that the page or the component currently has. So pretty powerful stuff. And then further down the road, introducing the idea of
machine intelligence into the equation further down the road to help, again, facilitate some of this testing stuff.
It also, makes it also kind of gamifies the testing component. So there's basically a leaderboard here. You're going up against your peers. And using the game to guess what their must actually perform well. The ones that are better guessers at their tests. Get more functionality open to them. Let them do more advanced testing and things of that nature. So, kind of cool stuff. There it goes. So one of the related to testing, this new idea of the presentation detail changes, basically. In order to do some of these more advanced testing, things that they wanted to do, they had to open up some of the presentation details. So right now, 72 and prior to, we all know that presentation details are a shared field across every version of a particular item,
as well as all languages of a particular item. And if you make a change on one version, obviously that replicates itself out to all the other versions.
So then how do you test having a page, with different versions with a different layout? What they've done is they introduced this concept of shared layout and final layout. So final layout is really take everything that's
take everything that's a
particular version for a particular language, any customizations that you make to that
particular version,
and take two components,
specify share,
and then put it all together.
Basically.
As I said, facilitate some of the more
testing features.
Version 1 of the page versus version 2 of the page. The example that I have on the previous slide has me tinkering with the Wormtail.com homepage, taking one of the call-out modules from the left-hand side and then moving it over to the right-hand side to see if it has a positive impact on the engagement value of a particular page. Experience analytics. So again, this is more of a Google Analytics type of information. So more of that raw data that we're now capturing, and now have an interface to actually see what that looks like. So some of the more statistical type of information, referral sources, audience types, so on and so forth. So again, Sitecore kind of rolling multiple platforms into this experience management platform. Path Analyzer, another good one. I don't have a great screenshot because, as you can see, I don't have a whole lot of what's going on. But I really have 2 pages on my Sitecore. But basically, let's to kind of make an analysis of a user's journey throughout their site, see where they're, see if there's any trends in particular things. Again, our strategist does a much better job of explaining this than I do, but we all know. And then lastly, for Sitecore 8, new documentation site. So doc.sitecore.net, all related to Sitecore 8 documentation, information, so on and so forth. So keep that in mind for the future as well. We're all used to going to SDN and checking out all that stuff, so this is fairly new to us. So let's talk a little bit about commerce. So Commerce was Commerce and Commerce Connect was a couple of big topics from Symposium as well. You can see from my awesome slide that I ripped off from some of the Commerce Connect documentation. I didn't actually draw this. I probably would have done a better job. What is Commerce Connect? Commerce Connect is an abstraction layer for the engagement analytics and an e-commerce platform. So what does that mean? So there's basically a middle layer that now sits in between your web shop, which is right underneath the website visitor there, and your actual e-commerce system. So all of your e-commerce systems kind of listed over here. Insight and so forth. Connected commerce could be in there somewhere. Looking at you guys over there, and so on and so forth. Right, Jason?
But basically, there's so you have your e-commerce platform, and then there's a connector that basically connects to Commerce Connect. That pass it's basically an API to pass card information, pricing information, customers, inventory, orders, and products and functionality. Kind of all volatile e-commerce functionality. So what is the advantage of Commerce Connect? It basically gives a standard playing field for all these different e-commerce implementations to make sure that they're routing through the analytics platform. Everybody goes off and
did their own thing. A lot of it wouldn't go through the e-commerce platform. I'm sorry, the analytics platform. We want to make sure that everybody goes through that analytics platform. We're capturing all of that data. And then of course, Commerce Server. Integration with, integrating Commerce Server. They've obviously purchased Commerce Server a while back, and they've been working on integrating that into the Sitecore platform. And they did that with, obviously, Commerce Connect. The main reason why they wrote it, but then they opened it up to everybody else. And then the other interesting piece of it from talking to some of the e-commerce guys at Symposium, they're actually using a data
provider
model to external sources. And if anyone's wondering what ILO means, I didn't know this up until I started building a house. Actually means in UO. So one thing and another. If you learned an acronym. In lieu of a more of a traditional, extract, transform, and load kind of procedure. So I thought that was pretty interesting to note. Then lastly, one of the other big announcements from Symposium was the free edition of for everyone to take what's included in the free edition. Typical Sitecore content indexing, complete placement, their user interface, so their web forms and MVC controls. Built-in Sitecore security, so early binding and document level security. Multilingual search, relevance tuning via their API, and then if you do subscribe to their gold support plan, you get usage analytics. How does that stand up next to the Enterprise Edition? You can see stuff comes with the free edition. What do you get with the Enterprise Edition? You get usage analytics. So XBB-based personalization on your searches, and then absolutely the ability to crawl external sources and get all that information as well. And then, I promise this is the last slide. If you've never checked out the demo site for Gouveia, it's actually really, really, really cool. I highly encourage you, if you've never started with it, Gouveia.com. Those are my slides. So I promised you guys I'd run into do a show share here. So what I'm going to do is basically go into, if I can find my mouse, a little bit of Sitecore 8. The time that I have here. Here we are. So I'm going to show a little bit of Sitecore 8 really quickly, and we'll go from there, and then kind of roll into the next part of the presentation. Sitecore 8, like we said, speak interface. They revamped the whole login process, so it's pretty straightforward, simple login at this point. As I said, brings us to the dashboard where we can see we have this resolution is very great. So you can see basically really there's a whole bunch of other stuff on here. But scrunch down here. We've got all the typical stuff that we're used to seeing. So we've got now known as the Experience Editor, which was formerly known as the Page Editor, Content Editor. We've got Desktop View over here. We've got some other things like FXM, Experience Analytics, the Experience Profile, what was formerly known as ECM or the Email Experience Manager, so on and so forth. And of course, we have our usage analytics here on our dashboard as well. So I'm just gonna go into to show a couple of things really quickly as far as the interfaces go. Pretty straightforward. It's crazy different from what we know and used to seeing.
Again, weird horizontal facing thing going on with what probably 800 by 600 here. No, that's all. But as you can see, it's fairly, similar to what we're all used to, seeing, used to, obviously working with on a daily basis. I'm told there's some additional things on this optimization tab where now we can interact with setting some profile cards here. We got that back in the content editor. Some different testing functionality, testing recommendations that come up here. But everything else is fairly straightforward. One of the things I was going to show here was the Experience Explorer. So, again, really awesome. What you can see from here, we have these two panels here that fly out our settings, and then we'll take a look at the viewer as well. But basically, we can set, if I had a bunch of personas that were defined here, I could select a persona, see what this page looks like in a particular persona, click apply. As we said, page refreshes, get to see what's like this particular persona, if it's or and whatnot. And then on the right-hand side, we see the actual viewer. So a little description about the persona that was selected, so on and so forth. We have the ability to do just a bunch of different stuff, so we can trigger different behaviors through here. We can trigger goals and page events and see what those the reflection of that looks like on a particular page. We can impersonate certain things. We can throw a device on there. We can impersonate some of the GeoIP stuff. Again, there's a map here that puts me in the middle of the ocean because I'm out of my max mind lookups. But if I had some, it would probably put me in the right spot. But we can select things like the country. We can specify an IP address if we even wanted to. Things like that. And then referral sources. So we came on a particular keyword or came in on a particular campaign. We can, again, set that, see what it looks like, and go from there. So that's the Experience Editor. We go back to the Experience Editor here. We'll go back to the dashboard. You can see we kind of have this ribbon at the top of everything now. Basically, let's go back to the dashboard, log out, so on and so forth. Go back to the dashboard. I'm not going to show the editor for this time because it looks fairly similar to the other one. You can see desktop mode. If we want to, we'll pop in and out of there. It doesn't come up with Burndale building. If you want, I can send it to you. Just let me know. I'll put my email up here. Typical Sitecore desktop. Pretty straightforward stuff. Everything that we're used to seeing from before. So I'm just going to go really quickly through FXM because that was probably the most engaging piece of the things that we saw. And basically, we have a number of sites. I have one set up here. And it's pretty straightforward to set up. You put a name in. It gives you in a domain URL. It gives you this JavaScript beacon here. If you guys can see it, this is the one line of JavaScript that gets inserted on the other page that you have control over, ownership over. Once you do that, it validates that that's a good link, and you're collecting in the analytics data at that point. What we can do is open up the Experience Editor for FXM, and what it basically does, it proxies in this page that we have that's not managed within Sitecore. I promise you, it's an HTML page. Let's just do a couple of things to it. So like we said, we can capture click actions. So if we wanted to attach a particular action to a link on a page, I can click on this,
and this guy rolls up here. I'm going to call to action because I'm really bad at naming things. And as you can see, where I'm somewhere else. We roll up here. We now have something. We have our click action attached to it, and now I can say, what goals do we want to achieve when somebody clicks this action, or what page events do we want to trigger when somebody clicks on this to, maybe a request, that's appropriate for this.
Yeah.
We'll do that and select that.
Under this page.
So that's great. That's pretty cool. Fine and dandy. But one of the other really interesting features that we touched upon in the slides, adding dynamic content in this page. So I'm going to basically add a placeholder to this page. So I've clicked the button, I've clicked on this image. I'm going to say, hey, let's insert a dynamic placeholder to this non-related page. You can add it before. You can actually replace the components on the page. So if we want to swap out this image from Vegas for somebody else, we can personalize it, swap it out. But I'm going to add it to just below the image. And again, because I'm really poor at naming things, I'm just going to call it PL. I'm going to click OK. Now, what you can see, hey, look, I'm down here. What you can see is that when I scroll up here, we now have a placeholder on this static page. I can now, from here, add a component to that static page from our Sitecore instance. So it's going to pull up the select a rendering dialog box. We have all of our renderings that we defined in our Sitecore instance. I can select a rendering from here. I can say open the properties dialog box and select that. I can, opens up our, typical control properties. I can, from here, select the data source, all tied back from within our Sitecore instance. Roll over here. So now we have a data source in here. Click OK. And what you'll see is when I scroll up, that we're now pulling in content from the home node of our Sitecore page here, spitting out this particular component, whether it's rendering out the main body or whatever it is rendering out, and it's dynamically placing it on this page. We'll kick it up a notch. We can actually add personalization to this component that's not managed within Sitecore. So we want to add rule conditions to enter here. We can involve the typical personalization that we have available to us, write our own, so on and so forth. And then lastly, we can also test this component as well. So if I scroll and figure out where I am, we can implement testing on top of this. So, maybe testing for a component on a page that's not managed. That's the FXM. Any questions on FXM or anything Sitecore interface related? Along with that?
Have you tried this with other CMSs? So let's say this is straight HTML. Have you tried seeing how it plays with, for example, we use Actron, very old. How it would play with something?
It's the technology that's backing something like Actron. I can't imagine that it would have any issue with that. It's mainly what it does is it basically looks at the DOM. And then it goes down the DOM and says, okay, if you were to open this up and we could take a look at it in Content Editor, you basically see that we attach to a component or something like that. It basically has the whole path from the DOM all the way down in like XPath format, and it attaches to a particular piece of raw HTML. It feels a little weird. What I will say is, if anybody's seen my posts on the forum on SDN. It does get a little weird in JavaScript land. So obviously this page editor interface it can be a little hairy sometimes. As we all know, working with page editor and JavaScript libraries and things of that nature. You know,
jQuery,
we know that,
there's going to be some conflicts there, so we always implement the no conflict with all.
JavaScript that we're doing and whatnot. Well, the same holds true for a site that you want to run through FXM as well, is what I found out. I actually had to add the no conflict to a JavaScript include on this particular page to get some of this functioning properly. They're looking at it. I've reported it back to the team at Sitecore. But something to keep note of if you're playing with it and you're like, I'm clicking on stuff, it's not working. Like, why can't I attach things like that guy showed me? Like, what the hell's going on?
Probably JavaScript. So.
And you're also going to have to be concerned about CSS conflicts too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Back to your question, though. I mean, this is all done on the front end side. So as long as you can affect your HTML that's coming out of Actron to put that beacon on there. I mean, I saw this down almost a year ago. It was right on Sitecore 6.6. It was developed by ARC, Atlanta, and Sitecore bought it off of them. And so, it seems new, but it's actually technology that's been under development for almost 2 years. And it's the same deal. Instead of having to have placeholders on the site, you can hang stuff right off the DOM elements on there. But like you said,
I think they made some pretty good improvements to it. I looked through the original documentation not too long ago and how you would set it up and all that kind of stuff. This is it's so easy to set up. Just drop the beacon on there. Work with it within this interface. Once you work out some of the kinks, maybe. But they made it a lot simpler than it was back in the day, for sure. Cool. All right. Well. I've used up all of my time and maybe a little bit more, but thank you guys for listening.
You guys are afterwards. I'm going to hang around for a little bit, so feel free, reach out. I love to talk to people, so away we go.
Yeah. So I mean, right now it's mainly you guys have more questions. Definitely, I'm going to have So we all met Trevor. I don't know if anybody knows. I don't know if knows who I am. My name is Eric Kaiser, and I'm actually a Sitecore developer. I worked here at Hanson Dodge for about a little over 5 years, doing Sitecore predominantly that whole time. Along with Paul and Mike and Nick Lusselman, who couldn't be here tonight, kind of started this meetup just to get folks together. Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My Sitecore journey started in Milwaukee at Breaking Stride. Back in 6.1, I got certified. Took some time off of it for a little while, jumped back into it recently, and didn't look back. So with Proficient, we're in practice, and we're all over the place doing all sorts of different projects across the board. So I've been involved with a little bit of everything.
Well, I'm Paul Plackett. I'm at ZN Solutions. We do a lot of Sitecore for anything really. We do a lot of e-commerce creations and content management. And been doing Sitecore. Well, I have for about 2.5 years.
Awesome. Adam? Adam Brower coming up. He's one of the developers on Axon Atlas, formerly of Hanson Dodge fame. Co-worker of mine for a number of years. If you guys do any commerce work and contact support, we'll probably be talking to Adam or his colleague.
Or Jason. Yeah.
Or Jeff Lebowski. All right, so we kind of put together some leading questions for folks up here. Adam, I'm going to pick on you to start with. So there's a lot of really good e-commerce packages for Sitecore now. What, and most of them claim they integrate with Sitecore, including Active Commerce. But what is the connector kind of? What did you see at the symposium that the connector is going to offer that it's going to move commerce forward?
I mean, I think you covered kind of the basics of what it is. We all kind of understand, but I see it as is kind of Sitecore embracing commerce, so that going forward, it allows all like e-commerce solutions to advantage of what Sitecore has to offer. So really, it's a kind of a win-win for everyone. So some of the things that come with Commerce Connect are like engagement plans on the box. So they have things like abandoned cart, things like placing new order, and things like that. So really, they're just kind of gimmies for any e-commerce solution, including commerce, to take advantage of. And obviously, I think they're going to keep improving that later. I think I heard that they were working on a product manager kind of speak app. So if that comes out, then anyone that's got that integration at the Commerce Connect level can just take advantage of it right away, and their e-commerce solution just has that in their tool set.
You mentioned something that's a good one to move. Just kind of talk most of our agents that are speak interface. I guess what happens to all of our Shield UI work that is done?
So that's a great question.
I guess more importantly, what's it take to actually write a speak interface?
Well, the great thing about Speak, it's going to be in the stack that most of you guys are working in now. HTML and CSS. We're getting that XAML model, which on a sheer UI app. So you guys know the pain.
It wasn't really friendly.
It was difficult to get in. It was difficult to get to get working.
Now we're all working.
Some of the stacks, so it's going to be easier to create CCN dashboard, get things into Sitecore that's customized. So.
See, and this was just a demo, so I didn't speak. A lot of it is it's a lot of definition inside Sitecore data model in itself. So Sitecore Rocks has been updated to make building speak interfaces a ton easier. So if you're not used to like creating new items in Sitecore Rocks or like defining templates or doing that, a lot of like the property items that you set, like I'm going to have a new dialogue, and the dialogue is going to have 2 columns. In this column, I'm going to have a label with a text box. Those are all defined ultimately inside of Sitecore, and I think it's in the core database or where that actually ends up living. But the demo, when somebody said you're dumb not to try and even attempt doing a speak interface of not using Sitecore Rocks, just because of how much extension they built into editing those objects and customize Sitecore Rocks to actually like use those templates. So that was the one takeaway I got from that is just Sitecore Rocks is kind of like one of those things like oh yeah, I'm gonna exercise better. Like, oh, of course I'm gonna use Sitecore Rocks because it's so much easier. And then you find yourself on the desktop and inserting stuff. So I've been trying to force myself to use Sitecore Rocks a lot more for like template definition and all that. So they enhanced it quite a bit in order to do the speaking.
Yeah, originally when they rolled it out, I think there's some templates in Studio, and you can do that. I know, Jacobson had a series of articles to go through. So, it's much easier. Even at the MVP Summit, and we had our little challenges. I don't know about your team, but our team had a problem. There wasn't enough people that used it. So the Rocks is something that's going to be around that's going to enhance the environment that we're going to have. So, if you don't know, I would taking a look at it.
Take 20 days.
You gotta do it in February too.
I know this for building something. Can you explain the context of why it's used? Just in the context of Sitecore, like modules, or
it's basically a lot of times if you're extending the Sitecore interface now, if you put it up, you click on a field and you editor, it pops up in a dialogue. You just get in that XAML. It's this. I don't know if it's like true XAML-like extension, a cozy side that your backend code runs in. So all of that is being completely replaced by Speak. So it's customization to the Sitecore interface itself. So you're not going to be writing Speak interfaces for the end user runs the site.
But for your marketers, for your content authors, if you're doing a lot of
You're doing field customizations, maybe in a custom field that makes a particular value a lot easier for your content editor.
or just even
Extending existing dialogues that are there.
One use that we did recently was a software course. And this was in a 7-1 instance.
We actually
extended that because we could do the prototypes that we needed to
out of the current
interface. So we use speed to
put a facade
comment on that.
So those are the kind of things we're looking at.
Perform that extension.
I think one of the examples from Symposium was related to commerce, but have a whole commerce interface. And, basically, what they wanted to do was add a tab onto one of the profile pages. It's basically define a new tab. How you define the listing points that can be within those tabs.
So let's take it on. Question on upgrading.
I can take that.
So, Sitecore Experience I think like on some bottom lines it was like browser on CSN. It gets like officially launched. Yeah. There's a bunch of documents just kind of.
How hard is it to upgrade?
Well, your road to 8 is going to be 7.5 if you want to keep your analytics.
Right
now, if you're on any of the 7s, if you're on 6.6 and you're doing DMS, it's just DMS in that case.
Essentially, if you want to go up to 8, you're going to go through your normal upgrade paths.
7, you're going to jump to 7.
7.5 is going to have an extra step in it that's going to convert that analytics data into your XDB, your experience database. So from that point, we was told it should be fairly simplistic to go from 7.5 and beyond. Yeah, you put that on approach. Right?
Yeah.
I kind of tend to believe them on that. I think they realize some of the pains in the past of upgrading, and I think they're trying to do a bit better job to make it a lot easier and a lot more simple for people to migrate out.
Is there going to be a fast track? So if you're on 6.5 like we are, and we want to do 8, like are they going to look at a 6.5 to 8?
You're at 6.5 now. I'm not speaking with any authority, but like looking at what it takes to get from 6.5 to 7.2, you've got to go through like 4 different versions to get there. There is no direct path.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, I'm not going to lie, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
The easiest way for you to get away with it, export your content either as a package or to serialize it, and then just do a secondary site and import your content.
Yeah.
It's even easier if you're not using analytics now because then you don't have any data to migrate. So if you can get a 7.2, which is a little journey from 7.2, once you get there, 7.5 is really nothing. Especially when you have analytics to migrate, it's literally just nothing.
Yeah, really. If you have analytics, think about standing up 8 and then bringing things in.
Or log to get your analytics and server.
It's like you use it, like, are you really going to have pull through your history on your analytics database and just try to push it somewhere?
That comes down to the maturity of the organization. Where are you guys at from a client perspective, from a user perspective? Where are you on that maturity?
We've seen from Sitecore.
If you're the higher end, you're going to be upgraded.
If you're at least scraping think about just starting with 8 and go again.
But one thing I'll actually add to that from that I think Mark and I probably picked up from the MVP summit was they're looking into fast track, but it's going to be post version 8.
Okay.
So, hopefully
get to 8 and start doing some more fast tracking of upgrades and things like that.
Especially for really big, enterprise kind of, where it takes 1.5 years to upgrade to 7.2. Just manpower, like.
If you're doing it in place and not migrating your content, I think it was only 6.5 to 6.6. There's no schema change where you have to run a SQL script, and then the rest of it is just updating running update packages, upgrading modules, all that. So it's a pain. It's just slow, especially if you have a lot of content for it to churn through. But yeah, all indications were get to 7.2, get to the latest version of 7.2, and you're golden for getting to 7.5 and eventually 8.0, because that's from the jump supposedly isn't that bad. INET. Let's take a scan. Throw it up. So will all my content be tested automatically?
All your content tested automatically.
So what is, you kind of covered that. What exactly, for the developers? So what is it? Why should I care?
From a developer perspective, that's a great question. The biggest piece of Skynet is really to change the presentation details. What that has on, making. Get it, Mike. What that has basically on, your sharing layout, your final layout. That's from a developer's perspective. That's something that we'll keep our eye on. The testing, the whole testing framework is it. I know as I said, they're looking to automate a lot of that, make it a lot easier, more testable, things of that nature. But from a developer perspective, I don't think there's a lot that has to be done from our perspective.
How many marketers are in the room right now versus developers? All right, so four marketers.
Let me ask you guys a question. Gamification. We talked about it a little bit. What are you guys thinking from that standpoint amongst your content authors, and how you can see yourselves using that?
That's huge. One of our KPIs is content marketing. Tammy, so analytics is a huge deal for us. To even just do testing on our platform is a huge change. So a lot of people are very excited about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think the great piece of it is, it's going to start making
recommendations and things of that nature, and automating
a lot of the nonsense of it.
It's going to,
the tests run for a particular amount of time depending on how much traffic a particular site gets, and then automatically selecting winners, sending out the results of things. We don't need to actually roll back those changes if they have a negative impact to the overall engagement value.
So one of the cool things I saw from a marketer standpoint was if you look at content editors, things they show almost like an internal engagement plan. You get it on a page, and then also it moves, and then it's testing it to see what engagement went down on that page, and it will automatically send an email like, hey, that edit you did 3 days ago, it actually put the song and it didn't. So that sort of automation seemed a lot.
Thanks for cleaning, lady.
As a developer, I'm skeptical of is that going to be to actually implement?
A lot more engagement. The hardest thing with any content authorship within an organization is keeping people engaged with what they're actually doing, and what was valuable for what was not valuable, and then adjusting. Only that feedback would be great.
For all my tech friends,
It's machine learning.
How cool does that get, right?
The whole Skynet piece comes in.
Yeah, the whole algorithms,
Presentation. He's into
masks of different animals, a horse head. This is going to be a great thing with the rules engine, with everything else going on in the algorithms. So I'm looking forward to this. Probably as a dev, this isn't something I'm going to use on roll-up for a lot of my clients to go, well, we're going to do a lot of customization around this. But I think it's going to be the start of something going forward. So it's something to pay attention to now.
I think, it also plays into how sites actually constructed. A lot of building a site, best practices and standards for Sitecore, plays into having the ability to actually do the testing. So, a lot of that is really important from a test perspective. So, supporting page editor and all of those extremely important things.
become even more critical is now that these things become even more important. People are asking for site about them. Becomes so important. So
one other piece that I saw that kind of takes advantage of the rendering that's now being versioned is you can actually test automatically with workflow. So when you can publish with test or just publish without test. So just being more in your face and making it that easy, like, oh yeah, why won't I publish with a test and see if it's permitted the site? So,
what about, and we kind of covered this a couple meetings ago, but adding, with all this data now, what does that mean for reporting from an analytics standpoint? Isn't big data going to be cumbersome to report on?
I mean,
Go ahead.
I mean, from a collecting standpoint, obviously, the MongoDB, is highly optimized to handle mass amounts of data. And now, obviously, we don't have that single point of collection, being the analytics database. If we have multiple content delivery servers in multiple geographic locations, we're not funneling all that back to a single analytics database. We're able actually to shard that out across multiple locations and then have it all report back, and then it all gets basically compiled down into the reporting database, which is then more of a traditional SQL server that the reporting actually runs off of. So I think the scalability piece of it is obviously huge. Being able to handle vast amounts of data, being able to collect and then compact and drill down into. I think obviously Step 5 made huge improvements in that area.
Question. As far as reporting and everything, is that really what Speak is designed to do? Is to make it easy to build custom tools to pull reporting? I mean, is that what you use that for? Like we want to run these reports on a regular basis for our marketing people. We want to see what this does and that does. Like, would you speak really to kind of custom reporting tools, or yeah?
You could. I mean, that it's not limited to that. You know what I mean? Right. I think it's mainly, I think of it as extending the Sitecore interface.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's gonna be new, look at the experience profile and stuff like that. You look at all the attributes that are associated, and you're going to have custom attributes that you want to attach to people, like wish lists and things of that nature, and how do you extend the interface to display that within that one unified interface? You want to be able to do that, and it gives us the ability to do that, more easily,
Alex Shiva had a great presentation where he, everybody familiar with Mr. Rogers is in this room because I'm kind of old. So he did this thing where, okay, now I'm going to change my jacket and my shoes, and I'm going to be developer guy for the day. And he actually went through scenarios of my boss wants X, Y, and Z, and you put it together in front of the audience through the tooling. The tooling is much better. It's going to need to be extended. There's no circumstances. I think the tools of the labs are going to be a lot better going forward, and a lot easier to work with for them.
The thing that I guess I took away, seeing a lot with the 7.5 is, you use 7.5 and like all the analytics are MongoDB now. And that's not truly the case. All the analytics get written to MongoDB, so it is sucking in all the analytics that are coming off your site, which could be substantial. But then there's another instance in Sitecore called the reporting server that's going through and actually aggregating all of those. That actually has a pipeline you can tap into, that if you want to start bringing in other content and matching it up with the data coming out of MongoDB, and then that gets rolled into a reporting database, which I believe is still SQL Server. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's still using kind of OLAP services to do a lot of the pre-aggregation. So you can look at, your fact table comes down to the actual page click. But then a lot of times you want to aggregate that up to a visit, or with Experience Database, you can aggregate that down to an actual user across multiple devices. If you tag them and they've offered up enough information that now you can take all these anonymous sessions tied back to a single user. That's Joni Smith, who's been shopping on your site for 6 months. Now you can actually use that and target that. And so there's a ton of pipelines you can plug into on the reporting side, but as that's getting aggregated, add in your own aggregation points you know, if there's another value you always want to group by on, you can actually have that data pre-aggregated, and it's all part of the reporting service.
And not to give Nick a shout out because he's not here, but he may be watching, so he is. But he actually has a great set of articles about 7.5, and part of it is extending the data collection to add more information, collecting more information, and doing that transformation that in the pipeline that Eric was just talking about. So you have to check it out with Sitecore, right?
Sitecore 414, right?
414. Yeah. Check it out.
So are you saying it would be possible to like integrate it Omniture, we use Omniture and we have a lot of historical information on some other sites that are using it. Could you tap into that so you have one truth? So you're not really looking at different sources?
I mean, from an analytics standpoint, I don't think that's an integration that you may end up doing. I know right now it's kind of, we talked a little bit about this yesterday in the Chicago user group. You know, it's like at what point do we actually make this transition away from something like Google Analytics or an Omniture and go solely with Sitecore's engagement analytics? You know, because that's the road they're going. You know, they want to capture more of that statistical type of information. And at what point do we make that cutover? Now, right now, they coexist with one another. You know, we capture analytics, engagement data, and we capture analytics data via third-party sources. And they're not married up right now. I think the goal is to eventually replace those things and not necessarily integrate those things. We do have the ability to, I think the benefit is we are able to integrate external sources, not necessarily analytic sources, but something like CRM, integrated into that one, that X profile that we showed, get all of that data from that source that you may have about that person, integrate that in, see what it looks like in conjunction with the website data that you have. That's really kind of where the integration pieces that come in.
Related to that is, do you actually own the data that's collected by Omniture? Because it's stored somewhere out, and I wonder, if you can even get that, if you can import it into Sitecore. Yeah, that's probably a bonus of the Sitecore stuff is Sitecore you're running on your own. You own that data.
Adobe, Sitecore is all over that.
So you see most people choosing, or they have the luxury to choose, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe are they less complex organizations that are able to make that decision? The only reason I ask is we have many sites out there, and Omniture's been our tool for many years, and to lose historical information and to say, nope, we're cutting you off, we're going this route. I was just interested in how other companies or any other experiences you guys run into on how people are handling that.
I mean, it's so new at this point. The experience analytics, so the data of that is, is 8 specific, which is, like Q1 of next year. I don't know. I mean, it will be interesting. Our digital strategist that was with us yesterday, this is still in its infancy. It's not even released yet, and at this point, she's recommending that you keep both of those things, collecting data in those two platforms, because it's just not up to par yet with a Google Analytics or an Omniture at this point. But that's the road they're going. I think one of the interesting things from, I don't know if it was the keynote or what it was, but they say marketers use of a particular platform that they may have access to. I think they use 20% of the functionality that the platform actually offers. So Sitecore's model is if we do 60% of whatever that other platform does, or 80% of that other platform, and integrate it into our one system, that's a value add. That's huge for us. We can start replacing these systems. You look at FXM. FXM's a direct competitor, with something like a Test and Target from Adobe. You see they're starting to take over all of these different things and making this one unified platform. And granted, they're never going to be up to par with those custom built, one-off solutions. But if you're not using, 80% of it, maybe it makes sense.
Right. But it's about choosing the right tool for the job, right?
Right. So we're
and historically, you've used Omniture for that, for reporting, and that's a marketing tool. right? Sitecore's pulling all this in for experience and build upon personalization to make those smart choices, to crunch the numbers, do the machine learning, and those tools won't be there yet. So eventually, that's the goal.
Paul, you've been quiet. What was the coolest thing you saw in Las Vegas?
I saw a lot of
That you can share in front of a large
No,
crowd.
well, the party was awesome. There's a lady in a ball, and it's really weird. You know, I thought Commerce Connect was a big thing for me as a systems integrator. It's always, how do I bring disparate systems together, and especially e-commerce into Sitecore? Because as implementers, we want to make marketing tools and tools that are useful for people to sell and market online, and realistically, Sitecore is that, right? But it doesn't have or hasn't traditionally had the e-commerce capability, you know, until commerce or some of these other things. So, you know, over the years, we've done things like integrate Magento into Sitecore, or integrate other e-commerce platforms where we've had to jump through hurdles and do all kinds of custom stuff every time. But Commerce Connect will give us that framework to do that out of the box, which is outstanding. You know, the next thing I think is Coveo, search out of the box. Search is the single most important aspect of user experience going forward. And I think Coveo default is going to give Sitecore a much more powerful tool than default Lucene. I mean, you guys all know, extending Lucene, I'm sure many of you had that hurdle, is what can Lucene realistically do when you want to talk about search that has a good experience to users? It's not powerful enough, and Coveo will do that.
The Coveo thing I thought was interesting. The announcement, they listed, I think, the first day, even if you got an email via Coveo.
But the big difference with Coveo is contextual search, right? It learns and it understands users as they search and as they behave on your site. You know, ties in with the Experience Platform, ties in with what we want to do with Boost and Berry and typical search, search implementations. So it's doing all of that intelligently for you out of the box. Now, I think you have to get enterprise to get the Boost and Berry and all the intelligent search, but you know, it's that platform and now the extended search that comes with Sitecore that I think is a huge gain.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is it opens up an immediate option. If you want to do search on a multilingual site,
yeah.
And if you have any CJK characters, if it's Chinese, Korean, or Japanese, you're stuck with Solar because you've seen one indexing. Same thing if you got a site in Russian, it doesn't handle Cyrillic characters, so you're stuck with Solar. Now you've got an option that doesn't require you to install a Java.
Yeah. Working with so much
details in there, see that you can start with that, and it can be really messy.
Well, right, and Coveo's got, I don't know how many people, I've done 2 sites using Coveo, and their interface is actually pretty good. It's just set and forget kind of thing. Unless you're in there constantly tweaking and doing boost and all that, but
it's integrated into Sitecore.
which is even better.
You can actually search tools within Sitecore, whereas before you'd have to have your own interface with Coveo, or with Lucene, you don't have that at all. You know, that's my big takeaway.
Cool. Awesome.
Pre-version of Coveo on Sitecore is, I noticed in the slide mentioning progressive controls that like basic site search component and just kind of goes up behind the scenes of space.
So it is installed. So I don't know how familiar you are with the search motor in Sitecore 7.
So basically, they wrote this whole kind of API for search, and then underneath it lives some provider. And by default, when you install 7, 7172, it's using Lucene. You can, and out of the box, you have that use for all the search. So like search that goes on inside the content editor, some of the news, data search, you can search for data sources. The Coveo you can rip Lucene and Solar out from Coveo and back end that and use nothing else, and you've got a great search engine behind it. Coveo's really good. The part that they provide is a bunch of sub-layouts, which are kind of JavaScript controls, so that you're not hand building your site search. And say you want faceted search, now you've got to hand build a sub-layout that takes the search control, gets what are all the facets. I mean,
let me show all the checkboxes and all that. It actually gives you a JavaScript component that does that. It spits out really clean markup, and you can give that to a front-end developer, and they can style it.
That's independent of web forms or MVC, right?
What's that?
Is it independent of web forms or MVC?
Yeah, it's Coveo's JavaScript UI. Yeah, and that's their, in my opinion, their single most important feature. Yeah,
Right.
and that comes free. With
Which is,
default.
I personally, I was back in the ages before they provided like a couple like user web controls that you couldn't style at all, and they looked like garbage, and no customer ever wanted to use them.
So you're stuck calling their scope API.
Yeah, I do searches. The fact that they will do these JavaScript controls, now you can at least style them so they don't look like crap. And you'd actually put them on, on a business marketing site.
So
That part's huge as well, because it shaves time. Like half the projects I ever estimated, I was like, wait, where's the task for the search page? Yeah, we forgot to put that in the estimate. Like, oh, but you know what? We got to develop an entire interface for this, and nobody estimated that. At least you've got a bunch of canned components that are actually pretty good.
Yeah. And I think it gets people in the door, from Conveyo's perspective, it gets them in the door,
and then, hopefully over time they mature with their search
features,
and they find out all the things that the platform can do, and then they upgrade the enterprise platform. And
to get people in the door and get them using Coveo.
Yeah, so as an implementer, it's been hard to get Coveo in front of a customer before. This is great now that it's free. You can do that. It's always, okay, well, you have to pay for this, but here's some stuff that you can take care of on your own, and it's free. It's hard to sell something that way, right? So most people do gravitate to that way. Now it's free offering. You're getting a great product, and now it's just a matter of getting that in front of people that can go with it. So.
This is based off of a screenshot you sent me with a tweet. Changing gears a little bit. I guess there was a talk about item API for SDK for Xamarin.
Yeah,
did anybody hear about that?
Any of the mobile sessions? I saw somebody tweet something about it that they announced there, and I haven't been able to find anything. An API stack for Xamarin. I had sent it to him, but I used to look for Xamarin.
That's killing me. That's killing me. I can't find it.
I don't know if it was that.
The tweet I saw, somebody said that they announced
Xamarin API for Sitecore. Now, I don't know if there, my speculation is I know there's a new item API that
just
do a lot of your, if you speak you're actually applying JavaScript. I don't know if they're wrapping that for Xamarin. That's a new
API. I think there's an existing item API of some sort. I don't know if that's what that was or not, but I haven't been able to find anything.
Nobody's heard of it. All right.
Mythical.
It's a unicorn.
Exactly right.
There's a couple things with Sitecore that we're using 7.2 that run into. Page editor seems a little bit clunky, so you can find it edit mode sometimes. In Chrome, at least, I've noticed. Has that been improved at all in 8? UI, I don't know how long you guys have had to work with.
Yeah, I mean, the
biggest thing with the page is that there's so many areas where collisions can happen. It's like CSS and JavaScript and all those things. If everything falls and starts a line, page editor works. Does it happen? Yeah,
If you ever watch what's happening behind the scenes with the page editor too, it like renders your page twice. So there's like an iframe at the bottom. At least this was like 5 times. There's a hidden iframe at the bottom that's got your page, and as you're doing edits, it's actually making calls to that frame. And then when you save, that persists out and it kicks off another event to actually reload the DOM on your site. It was really clunky. And I gotta believe that's been fixed, but I got 7.2. There's been parts that have been slow. I noticed from what have been update 3. What is the latest now? Update 3 or 4? One of those. It's a little faster now, but yeah, it's kind of still kind of funky.
A little bit, yeah.
I gotta say too, like really good front-end code works a lot better with page editor than wonky front-end code.
And that's the thing, you have people that weren't
a lot of times it's your fault.
and then now you've got a bunch of CSS selectors that are like, I need this div that's a direct child of this other div. Well, Sitecore is going to jam like 3 or 4 other divs in between those two to put its nice edit frames and all that, and also the CSS is lost. So you got to be kind of careful with your CSS.
What about dynamic placeholder key IDs? So say that you create separate renderings for like a bootstrap grid system, and you want to throw 2 separate 6 calls in there with the same placeholder key name. You add controls to one, it sees them as the same and refreshes in both.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was ever resolved by Sitecore or future versions or not. We're looking at that like a dynamic importing control, like adding extra like panels dynamically in pages.
I haven't heard anything of that being solved. I mean,
Yeah, I haven't heard anything. I've seen it.
Yeah. I don't know of anything other than those blog posts and then to go around it. Yeah.
You're stuck using the page editor too, because all of a sudden you've got these placeholders that have keys with big long widths. Any other questions? For coming out. Again, we've said this every time. This is kind of for the Sitecore community in Milwaukee. I think you guys want to present out there.
Do we have contact info?
You can find me on Twitter.
Or leave a comment on the meetup page.
Yeah, or if you go on the meetup page, leave a comment there. Leave a comment there. If you want to present on something, or if you want to hear about something, let us know. Thanks, everyone.